What's going on, good people? Welcome to the Living the Life Show. I'm your host, Columbus Cody. So glad you chose to join me today, and happy Friday. It's the last verse for this week, and I pray that today's verse truly encourages your heart. It comes from my favorite book in the Bible, which is Proverbs, and we're going to read Proverbs 16:9, the NIV, and this is what it says. In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. Now, I have a lot of verses I want to show you on this, or to connect with this on this, and I'm going to dive right into them. And I truly believe these verses will encourage your heart because it will bring to light what today's verse is telling us. Yes, you have plans, and that's good. You should have plans, but you should also understand and recognize that even though you may plan out a whole bunch of stuff, God ultimately has the say so in everything. Okay. And sometimes to some people, they don't like hearing that because they want to be in control of their life. But what I've learned in my life is this: when you truly love and honor and appreciate God for who He is in your life, you want your plans to match His plans. Let me say that again. The wisest choice we can make in our life is to make sure our life's plans match the plans that God has for our life. And how will you know that except you spend time with Him? How will you know if your plans are His plans? You have to seek Him. You have to spend time in your word, and you will discover through reading of the word the plans that God has for you. Let me show you this verse here. This is James chapter 4, and we're going to read 13 through 15. And this is what it says. Look here. You who say today or tomorrow, we're going to a certain town and we'll stay there a year. We will do business there and make a profit. How do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? This is what James is writing. How will you know what your life will be like tomorrow? Your life is like the morning fog. It's here a little while, then it's gone. What we ought to say is this: if the Lord wants it to be, we will live and do this or that. This is when the old folks say, Lord willing and the creek don't rise. Tomorrow I'm going to go down there, go down yonder, Lord willing and the creek don't rise. And what they mean by that is God ultimately has the say so. Now, I plan to do this tomorrow, but Lord willing, Lord's will, this happens. Okay, let me show you another one. I love this verse. This is the NLT. The verse I just read you was the NIV, but this is the NLT. Jeremiah 29:11. It says God has plans for us. No, it says here, for I know the plans I have for you. This is what Jeremiah says. I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope. And what I wrote when I read this verse is that God has a plan for us. But does our plans match up to His plans? See, God says, I have plans for you. You're making plans, but I already have plans for you. The plans you're making. Now, here's the cool thing. God gives us free will, which means we can choose what we want. The problem is if that is not His plan for our life, it will take us down paths that can ruin our life. The cool thing about life is this: God has the veto power to veto any of our plans. Now, sometimes He allows us to carry out whatever we were planning and allow us to see that making plans without Him might not be the best choice in life. Okay? It is a flawed thought process. To consider Him before you make your plans is the wisest choice you can make. Okay, let me show you this. This is Proverbs 3:6, and you guys have heard this. I'm gonna read it to you in the King James, and then I'm gonna read it to you in the New Living. The King James says this: in all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. Listen to the NLT. It says, seek His will in all you do, and He will show you which path to take. Before you conjure up your plans and you scope it out and you calculate everything, are you acknowledging Him? Are you seeking His counsel? Are you asking God, Lord, does this fit into the plan you have for my life? Because if you do that, He will order your steps. He will make sure that the steps you take are sure, they are straight, and they are sturdy. Okay? Now, Here's what I wrote in my notes. Question of the day. When you plan, do you acknowledge God in the planning process? When you plan, not us, when you plan, seriously look within and ask yourself this. When I plan, do I acknowledge God in the planning process? Does this affect this? Does this honor God? Does this, if I do this, will it do this? Do you acknowledge God in your planning process? You see, sometimes our plans are limited or limiting. See, God is omniscient. Omniscient means he's all knowing, which means God sees down the bend, around the corner, over the hill. All we see is down the street. He sees down the street, around the corner, over the hill. He sees everything. And so his plans are sure. And see, we may plan to go over the hill and around the bend, but we don't know what's over the hill. We don't see everything. So we have to trust God. Let me ask you, do you think that David planned to be the king? Do you think that Peter planned to be a disciple? Peter was probably planning to be a fisherman the rest of his life. David was probably planning to one day own his own sheep and be his own man of the house and have his own family, but he wasn't planning on being the king. Do you think Moses planned on being the emancipator of God's people? You see, sometimes our plans are limited because that's all we can think. That's as far as we can think. But see, God has greater for you. And if we can only operate in how we can plan, we'll never see what God has for us. So we have to trust God in the planning process. We have to honor him. Check in with him before you make your plans. Check in with him. All right. All these men probably had plans and dreams, but their dreams probably were much smaller in the big scope of what they accomplished in life. And you and I probably have dreams, and sometimes we think our dreams are big, but if we put our dreams and our plans in God's hands, we might find out that God has something totally different in store for our lives. And what we were planning is so small compared to the great thing he wants to do. Okay? God has a plan for you. We've heard that so many times, but it's true. God has a plan for you. Now, my question is this. Will you trust him in the process of planning out your life? Will you seek him for guidance before you make your next move? Will you ask him to direct your steps? Because if you do, if you ask him to guide your steps and order your steps, the Bible promises that God will do that very thing. All right? It's Friday. We don't have another verse Saturday and Sunday, but I pray that today's verse will carry you over as you continue to map out and plan out what you want to do with your life. Seek the Lord first. Ask him what he wants for your life. And if you do that, you will be so pleased with the outcome. Now, sometimes God tells us no. This is what I tell my sons. I will only say no when no is the best answer. So if God tells you no, then understand that is not a good plan for your life. And if you trust him, you'll be grateful in the end to see, God, you were right. All right? Don't forget to like the video, share it with somebody else. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell. Make sure you click the bell. If you don't click the bell, you won't find out when a new video is released. I'm planning, you hear that? I'm planning a lot of great things for you this year. I'm asking God to help me make those plans come to pass. So if you'd like to partner with me here at the Living the Life Show, you like to make a donation to help me continue to improve what we're doing here so we can touch the lives of many more, in the description below, you can find various ways that you can make a donation to the Living the Life Show that will help us do greater things in 2021. And whatever you do, don't forget, watch it, share it, and live it. Now let's get busy living the life.